Here we go, first race of this matchup, Luigi Raceway. Pretty low variance track, but still definitely some room for mistakes. Hattok looking like the early lead after turn one. Brian did get into the sand a little bit, but the first real chance to gain or lose time is at this first shroom. Would expect these players to use a 1-2-0 shroom strat. Trying to get a mystery boost. If you bang into the wall at the end of that shroom, it actually gives you a speed boost. Looked like Hattok got it. Didn't see if Brian did, but I expect him to be further behind if he didn't, so I think he did. Oh, Brian missing the entrance to the tunnel. That is something that happens sometimes. He's going to need Hattok to pretty much make the same mistake. That's probably one of the biggest time losses on this track. And yeah, at this point, Hattok gets into the tunnel, and really there's nothing left in this track to have him lose enough time for Brian to catch up. So he will be taking the first track here. We'll see what Brian responds with. He does have a few good picks against Hattok. Hattok is a bit higher ranked than Brian at this point, but there are lots of tracks where that ranking difference won't matter as much, and one of them is Bowser's Castle, which Brian will be taking us to next. Bowser's Castle, a very high variance track because of the thwomps. Brian going to the inside of the bush there. It is faster, but a lot riskier. I wonder if he did that on purpose. Sometimes your angle can be a little off and you're forced to go to the inside. Hattok hit the wall, but got the MT, which kind of made up for it. Oh, Hattok hitting the wall on that drop MT. That is a very unusual mistake. But yeah, the crazy thing is, it's Bowser's Castle. Race is not over yet. These thwomps are incredible at ruining your race. Yes, they start in time trials in Mario Kart 64. You start with 3 shrooms. Jake, I do it on lap 1. It's easier to me. I find it harder to manipulate the thwomps to go to the right when I'm going to the left. I find it easier to skip through the big gap on the right than the one on the left. Left's obviously faster, I just find going to the right much more consistent. Oh, Hattok hitting a thwomp. Brian avoiding them. Brian will tie up the set. Yeah, if I go to the left, I hit one of the tracking thwomps. So I do it lap 2 because it's like the left thwomp is completely up. So I go to left on lap 2, but I find it more consistent to go to the right. And Hattok now taking us to Toad's Turnpike. Yeah, it's just the ones chasing you. If it wasn't for that, going to the left would be the same as going to the right. It's just trying to manipulate the thwomps that gets difficult, for me at least. Oh, and Hattok hitting a car early on. It's a shame. Both players making some uncommon mistakes. But hitting a car on Toad's Turnpike happens. It could very well happen to Brian very easily, especially since that happened so early in the race. Hattok also firing his shroom around that corner. The shroom spots do vary on this track, but they're all pretty much the same, as long as you stay nice and tight to the fence. As you see with Brian with a huge advantage after lap 1 and still has his shroom, an extra shroom. But the cars, especially on lap 3, can get quite difficult, so race certainly isn't over yet, especially since, as Jake's kind of alluded to, this is a weaker track of Brian's, so if Hattok can keep it clean and fast and gets lucky with Brian hitting a car, he could absolutely catch up. Both players keeping 2 shrooms onto lap 3. Hattok missing some MTs there, messing up a drift as well. Isn't very uncommon on tracks like this, where it is just spamming a lot of MTs, especially in a one-try scenario. You're gonna miss some drifts. Hattok though really struggling with the MTs on this lap. See how Brian gets through these cars. This is where they get difficult. They are. Oh, and Brian hits a truck and fires his last shroom. He is still ahead. Needs to avoid the cars on the end of the lap. Pretty close, but Brian does take it. And Brian continuing with the high variance picks is going to take us to Moo Moo Farm, the highest variance track of them all. Except maybe Yoshi Valley. So Moo Farm, extremely high variance, both because of the uneven ground messing up MTs, but mostly because of the moles. They are completely RNG, and it's actually more likely for them to be up than down. So, yeah, don't be surprised to see one or both players hit a mole. They will take it pretty safe on the shroom, as safe as they can, really, without sacrificing too much time. You really don't want to risk going over a molehill in a one try. At least when you haven't hit a mole yet. Brian looking like he has the early lead. This is actually one of the tracks in their matchup where he does have the advantage, but he messes up going towards the shroom and just goes inside that molehill. I don't know if he did that intentionally or not. But that actually did catch him back up, saved him a little bit of time. Pretty neck and neck on the lap 3. Hattok with a bit of a lead. The shroom's going to be very important. Oh, Hattok took a tighter line, and he is going to take it because of that. Wow, well done. So, all tied up after 4 tracks. And Hattok's going to take us to Calamari Desert. So Hattok starting a bit before Brian there. I'm not going to sync them up just because I have a feeling Brian thought he was on okay when he wasn't. And they would have started at the same time, so I don't want to desync them by syncing them. But Hattok will look further ahead than he is. So the biggest obstacle on this track is the trains. They are on consistent cycles though. If Brian can make it past, he does. So Hattok used all 3 of his shrooms on the first lap to make sure the trains were out of the way. Brian risked a little bit by only using 2. He's going to use the 3rd one here. Interesting that he used it on lap 2 and not lap 3. He must have been worried that he wouldn't make it past the very last train on lap 3. Hattok making it behind the train there. Actually, pretty fast race by Hattok here if he's only just making it behind that train. But Brian gets hit by the train. Very unfortunate there. And Hattok will comfortably take the 5th track with a 147.04. Brian continuing with the high variance tracks, gonna take us to Yoshi Valley. Yoshi Valley is extremely high variance because of the spinies. They'll spin you out, they'll chuck you off the track. They are on cycles, but sometimes it can be hard to avoid them even when you know exactly where they're going to be. And of course, as soon as you hit one, the cycles are off. So we'll see what happens here. Both players avoiding the first set. Both going to the inside of the second set, but Hattok getting sucked up by the wall. That wall is a huge pain. You get too close to it and the polygons aren't lined up very well, and you kind of sink into the wall and lose all your speed. So yeah, almost, wow, 3-second lead. And Hattok hitting a spiny there. Like I said, as soon as you make one mistake, the spinies aren't in the same places as you're used to anymore. Should be noted too, this hairpin jump that they do after the spinies is considered non-shortcut. It's basically thought that it's so obvious and easy that the developers must have intended it. Or they'd have just continued the fence all the way around. Oh, and Brian falls off on hairpin. That is unfortunate. He falls off again, trying to recover quickly. And Hattok will take the track, and with that, he will take set number 1. So because he lost the set, Brian will pick first in the next set. And he is picking Mario Raceway. So with Mario Raceway, the biggest time save or time loss is the mushroom cut. See if both players can get through clean. They do on lap 1. Very close. Hattok in the lead by 0.03 after lap 1. See the mushroom cut on lap 2. Oh, Brian struggles and tumbles. Shrooms out of it, but actually shrooms into the wall a bit and loses it. Hattok's going to need to make a similarly large mistake. Brian to catch up. Wonder if Hattok will actually play this safe on lap 3. Whether he's listening to know that Brian made that mistake. No, he is going for the cut and makes it through. And Brian hits the Piranha Plant as well on lap 3. So unfortunate for Brian, Hattok will take the lead in the second set. Hattok getting into the Halloween spirit, taking us to Banshee Boardwalk. Too spooky. These guys, for some reason, cannot start at the same time. Alright, though. That's what I'm here for. Brian going for the drop shroom, Hattok not. I think we'll see Hattok using his shroom around the very last corner. Looks like he's pretty much tied with Brian here even without using that shroom, so maybe a good choice from him. Brian hitting the fence on the first corner. Relatively common mistake. You want to get as tight as to the fence as you can. Oh, and Brian falling into the water. Yeah. Just unfortunate. Banshee Boardwalk is not an easy track. Very tight. Very technical. So playing it a bit safer with his shroom strat is paying off for Hattok on this track. And he's going to take a pretty commanding 2-0 lead in this second set. An important pick for Brian here. Could be his last of the set if he loses the next two tracks. And he's going to take us to another high variance track, DK's Jungle Parkway. So on DK, this jump here being a huge reset point. Brian hitting the fence, but makes the jump. Probably smart to not use his shroom there. Hattok uses the shroom, but bounces into the tree. So it'll be interesting to see what their times are at the end of the lap, because Brian will be using his shroom to get up the cave wall. At least I assume he will be on lap 1. Oh, hits the fence on the bridge, though. Brian with a pretty big lead. Oh, I should also mention, Brian plays zoomed in, Hattok plays zoomed out, and playing zoomed out reduces lag like crazy. And this track is really laggy, so they're actually going to desync, even though they started at the same time, they're going to desync quite heavily over the course of the race. Brian, by the end, his in-game timer is going to be about 4 seconds behind Hattok's. So it's going to look like Hattock's pulling out a pretty big lead, but you're going to have to pay attention to the lap times. So Brian was in the lead at the end of lap 1. I think I didn't actually see what Hattock's lap time was after I said that. Ooh, did Hattok go? No, he played that safe. I was looking at the wrong texture. There is a specific texture if you're going for the fastest time. You're trying to aim to sort of just to the left of it. But in one tries, most people are going to play it pretty safe. So I think even with the desync, Hattok does have a lead here. I will see 158.13 from him, and yes, Brian did fall too far behind. So Hattock's going to take us to Royal Raceway next. Royal Raceway, pretty low variance, but there are still some key places you can gain and lose time. This 180 over the hill being one of them. You really want a good jump over there. Brian definitely got the better one. He was behind and came out of it ahead. The other one is, I believe... Yeah, okay, so neither player does the extra MT before the shroom. Another place you can gain or lose time is if you can squeeze in this second MT around this left-hander. Hattok elects to just drift all the way around. Brian going off to the left on that jump. Probably not a smart idea to try to readjust in midair. Both going for the extra MT on lap 2. Hattok certainly with the lead though, coming to the end of lap 2. Brian's going to need to have a really clean lap 3 to catch up. Brian certainly has a strong hill hop on this track. Noticed that in one of his previous matches as well. He catches up a lot of time against his opponent. Hattok though looking like he is going to take this track and take the second set with it. And not much room for error at the end of this track. And he does indeed take it by about half a second. So Brian taking us to Wario Stadium, probably a pretty smart pick from him. Their matchup is, their PRs are only 0.01 apart. Hattok getting the Tran on that first hill. It's going to save him quite a bit of time. But Brian and Hattok separated by only 0.01 in their PRs on this track. It's quite a long track, lots of room for error. And this track has also been one of Brian's better tracks in the league so far. Ooh, Hattok struggling with the MTs and tumbles going over those hills. That is the risk of trying to fit in the quick right-left MTs. So Brian is taking an early lead. Lots of time left on this track though. This is the second longest track in the game. And as well as being very long, it is also a very technical track. See, Hattok does do a couple of extra MTs around the lap compared to Brian, but Brian just being that little bit more consistent so far. Of course, as I say that, he hits the wall. Nice shroom from Brian, though. Hattok again going for the extra MT through those hills. Gets it this time, but misses the MT coming down this hill. So Brian with a pretty hefty lead at the end of lap 2, but one lap of this course is the same as 3 laps on Moon Farm. Lots of time for this to change, but certainly it's his race to lose at this point. Pretty wide shroom, but Hattok hits the wall on the landing to his shroom, can't get that MT off. Oh, Brian tumbles on after the small hills, and this race is suddenly very close again. And Brian hitting the walls. Hattok takes the lead now. I think Hattok will come home to take this one. It's a real shame for Brian. He was leading for most of that. And we're going to be going to Koopa Troopa Beach next. Yeah, you wonder if it is a bit of nerves, knowing he's in the lead sometimes, but see what happens on this track. We've seen lots of players, even in the top division, miss this tunnel. Both make it on lap 1. That is another one that is deemed non-shortcut. That one very clearly intended because of the ramp leading to it. Oh, Hattok misses the tunnel on lap 2. So now Brian with a huge lead. Missing the tunnel loses probably more time than any other mistake on any track. Having to drive around and just the time it takes to miss the tunnel in the first place is pretty huge. Brian is going to easily take this one. Brian taking us back to DK. Both players were practicing this track before the match started, so unsurprising to see it come up again. So once again, since Brian plays zoomed in, he's going to get a lot more lag than Hattok will, and their timers will desync by about 4 seconds by the end of the run. So Hattok's going to look like he's building a huge lead, but it's the split times that will really determine who actually has the lead. Brian messing up the first jump went way right, so probably correct in saving his shroom there. With 38.66. Yeah, almost 2-second lead just from going that far right on the jump. The normal shroom spot going across the grass does save a lot of time over going up the tunnel. Hattok, though, electing to do that, thinking he landed too far to the right to make the shroom through the grass worth it. Hattok saved his shroom. He's going to use it on the 3rd lap. So again, it looks like Hattok has a huge lead, and I think he is probably in the lead. But Brian's feed is going to fall behind because of the lag. Hattok with a 156.74, and yes, he will take this track. Pretty close to his PR, considering some of the mistakes he made. I would advise he go in PR on this track, because he can smash it. So the next trap is Sherbertland. Obviously the big obstacle being the penguins. Very easy to run into the penguins, on lap 1 especially. If you're on a decent pace, the penguin is right in the way. As well as these players will be trying to take their crack jumps pretty tight. Brian with a very good crack jump there. I was watching his screen, so I didn't see Hattock's. Although I expect it was pretty similar, considering they're pretty close. Both avoid the penguin on lap 1. A pretty close lap 1. Hattok coming very close to hitting the penguin at the end. Just a 0.04 difference in Brian's favor. Another very good crack jump from Hattok. Ooh, Hattok had to go a bit tighter to avoid the penguin and ended up hitting the wall. So Brian with an even bigger lead now. If you fall into the water on this track, it's much worse than falling off other tracks, because when you get put back down, you can't drive right away. You're in an ice cube that you have to wait for it to break. Brian's struggling a little bit at the beginning of lap 3, allowed Hattok to catch back up. This could be a very close race. I think Hattok had the better shroom there. Very close race, though. Think Hattock's going to take it? Yes, he does. Had a much better end to the lap there. Took it much more aggressive over the crack. And Brian is going to call his joker for what could potentially be his last race. We're going to go to Yoshi Valley for a shortcut race. So I would expect Brian to have the advantage in shortcut. He is the more experienced shortcut player, but shortcut is also pretty fickle. Could easily see an upset here. Oh, Hattok deciding not to do the shortcut. Driving around to the right side to do that shortcut instead of the normal one over here where Brian is. Very interesting decision. Maybe not comfortable with knowing where to line up. Yeah, I thought he was a little bit too far to the right there, Hattok, so he's gonna get warped over to where the hairpin is without triggering the lap. So Brian with a huge lead at this point. I'm gonna watch Brian's screen carefully because I expect he's gonna reset his console to make sure that the time doesn't save. Got it on the third lap. So Hattok now going for the... Oh, but he misses the jump. Probably why he didn't go for it on lap 1. Oh, whoops. Gets it on the third attempt there, but he's going to have to drive around to the right side now to finish off the race. Although he could wall jump off the fence, but yeah. Not many people are going to be able to do that consistently. Elects not to go for the right side shortcut. Maybe doesn't have the confidence in it after lap 1. Plus, if he's listening to commentary, he probably already knows he's lost. So, Brian staying alive in this match. Hattok taking us to Choco Mountain. Both players now using Toad. Get to hear double the Toad voice. So Hattok electing to use his first shroom on lap 1. The shroom strat does vary a bit because the... Oh, and Hattok tumbles! Hits the wall in a weird place and tumbles. The best place to use a shroom is around the first corner, but of course at the beginning of the race you have the start boost taking you around that corner. Brian getting good hills, Hattok not. This game's 30 FPS. On NTSC, which is what they're using. PAL is 25 frames per second. Ooh, Brian. Oh, he gets hit by the boulder. I was about to say he played it a bit smart, avoiding a boulder on the inside that he was probably going to hit, but playing it safe on that boulder put him in the path of the second one. That is a shame. There, honestly, not much he could have done on that one, other than just get there at a different time. Either a bit faster or a bit slower. Nope, they're both on N64. So yeah, with that, Hattok will take the track and he will take the match as well. So congratulations to Hattok. So that is it for us tonight. Great match between the two. 3-0 set score doesn't really reflect how close they were on a lot of tracks. But congratulations to Hattok. We will be back on Speed Gaming, I think, in a couple of days. Let me check real quick. Yes, as of now, we have a Halloween night match between Dan Burbank and Brian once again. Division 1 versus Division 3, but I think Dan has some fun things planned to make it a pretty interesting match to watch. So tune into that for sure. But for now, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you later.